Nuclear testing exposes the surrounding air to harmful doses of gamma radiation, which can pose serious health risks to the human body. Yet, we see people here fishing without protective masks. After the end of World War II, the world entered the Cold War. Some major powers expanded their nuclear weapon arsenals to provide an edge in negotiations and to offset each other's stockpiles. The Soviet Union at that time was one such great power which actively developed nuclear weapons. A vast open area in the far south was chosen as a site for the testing of nuclear weapons. These weapons not only strengthened the nation, but also had an impact on people and the environment. In 1949, the Soviet Union tested a nuclear bomb in the south of the country, and a thick mushroom-shaped cloud of smoke and dust rose into the sky. The shockwave spread out violently and rapidly, instantly destroying buildings, planes, and anything else in its path. The nuclear flash was as bright as a second sun. Over the next 40 years, massive nuclear bombs were repeatedly tested in this area, both above and below ground. Cars, buildings, and animals were tested for damage from nuclear weapons, which were considered weapons of mass destruction, with which the superpowers had to maintain balance during the Cold War. An area of 18,000 square kilometers was demarcated by the Soviet Union as a nuclear weapons test site, known as the Polygon. Nowadays, the Polygon is in the northeastern region of Kazakhstan, formerly part of the Soviet Union. It is a desolate land, with only hills as far as the eye can see. Kazakhstan is the 9th largest country in the world, but it has a population of only 18 million. The sparse population of this vast area was the reason the Soviet Union chose it as a site for testing deadly weapons. There are, however, people still living here. We are on our way to a village which is one of the closest to a nuclear test site. The roads in this area stretch out ahead, appearing narrow and rough. The sparse population means there aren't many vehicles traversing this region. Sarzal is a small village in the middle of a large field. There are approximately 2,000 inhabitants. 70 years ago, the people here were most exposed to radiation. The radioactive dust carried by the wind after nuclear weapons tests have caused many to die of cancer or give birth to disfigured children. Many of the individuals who suffered from these illnesses have passed away. Shakarov, a 70-year-old man, is one who has survived. He was born and raised here, and was the first generation born in the era of nuclear testing. None of the people here were honestly informed about nuclear weapons tests and their potential effects on their health. On an ordinary day in 1953, soldiers suddenly came to evacuate them, to as far away as 50 kilometers from the village.
Bizde tasa жерлерге үйілген топырақтың әр жақтарына тығып, үсті басымыз жауық қойды ананы көрмесін деп. Онан біз онан ұрланып, әлгі атқан неге қараймыз жаққа. Сонда ең бір жарық шығады, жарық.
Shakarov was only 4 years old at the time, but he still remembers every single detail. To this day, the medical profession has not been able to confirm that the deaths of people here were directly caused by radiation. What happened, however, was that most people of his age died prematurely from serious illnesses.
Оларды ойлағанда, осы қабырған қайысып, жаның ашып, қанша зардап шекті шіркін-ай дейсің. Олар әртүрлі аурулардан, мысалы айтарық, көбі мынау бауырдан рак болып ауырды.
Bolatbek, a 60-year-old man from the village of Sazel, was the second generation born at the time of nuclear weapons testing. All of his family members have died from serious illnesses.
Менің атам тұр. Бұл кісі де бауырдан онкологический ауру. Мына кісі де неден кетті, жаңағы инсульттан кетті. Менің енем бұл. Менің әйелім несі.
He still keeps a collection of books and maps about the nuclear tests in those days. During that time, the Soviet Union attempted to conceal this information from the public.
Енді ондай компенсация еш нәрсе беру. Компенсация кейіннен ғана беріле бастады. Кейін оның өзінде біз компенсацияны дұрыс алған жоқпыз. Біз Кеңес одағы тарағаннан кейін компенсация алдық. Оны түгел вообще ақша инфляцияға түскеннен келді. Біраздаған болар болмаса ақша алдық мысалы.
In 1963, the Soviet Union moved its nuclear tests underground. But some tests went wrong and radioactive dust remained in the air. When Bolatbek was a child, he could see smoke bursting like mushrooms into the sky outside the house from some distance.
Негізі атылған тауына Дегелең деген мына жақта екі тау бар. Мен осыдан бастап былай қарай мына жаққа дейін 100 шақырым болмаса 60 шақырымға дейін созыла береді ол.
In the vast expanses of the Soviet Union, they picked out remote areas for secret operations. The radioactive dust, which can drift far away on the wind and permeate the air, is not, however, far enough from these people. Although Shakarov is still alive, while many of his friends have died, he also has a kidney tumor. Today, he's able to carry on his normal activities, but with strict health precautions. For more than 40 years, the Soviet Union did not inform the people of the dangers of nuclear weapons testing, and didn't provide any remedies until Kazakhstan gained independence in 1991. The government of Kazakhstan then began providing identity documents for all those born between 1949 and 1991 living near nuclear weapons testing sites. That document is a radioactive passport. Shakarov received his passport in 1992. The cover of the document depicts the polygonal nuclear test zone and a characteristic mushroom cloud. His passport made it clear that he was born in a high-risk area at the time of nuclear weapons testing. Being born here caused his body to be exposed to more radiation than normal.
And this is the area, like saying that you are in the radiation area?
облысы, районы, Семей облысы дейді, Абай районы Саржал ауылында туылған деп отыр. Басқа іштеңі, мұнда іштеңі жазылмаған.
This passport is proof that someone has been exposed to radioactivity, because the radiation affects human cells. It causes various diseases such as cancer, which can be passed down genetically. Passports are like identification documents to identify those who've been exposed to contaminants that could affect their children. It's also a document confirming their eligibility to receive medical payments every year, even though the Kazakhstan government itself has not continued to support them lately. Simi, a large city in eastern Kazakhstan, is just 150 kilometers from the nuclear testing site. Over a 40-year period of nuclear weapon testing, more than 1.5 million people in the surrounding area are thought to have been affected. Despite nuclear testing being halted for the past 30 years, its lingering effects continue to impact the health of the people in this region to this day. Eastern Kazakhstan experiences double the cancer rate compared to other parts of the country. Simi thus became a city with radiation research and treatment centres. This is a specialised treatment centre which treats people who have lived in high-risk areas. Patients are usually 50 or older, or those who were born during the nuclear weapons testing era. The case of Kazakhstan is different from the nuclear bombs dropped on Japan's Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The people here were not directly exposed to radiation, but the radiation was carried by the dust that gradually dissipated and infiltrated into the body. This has had a detrimental effect on people over the years. Although it's still inconclusive that the diseases suffered by the people here are directly caused by radiation, all the patients here have been exposed to more radiation than normal. These two women have lived in high-risk areas all their lives. At that time, the majority of people lacked an understanding of how nuclear weapons testing could harm the human body. Few took precautions to shield themselves and instead viewed the power of nuclear weapons with immense enthusiasm. As a consequence, they were exposed to radiation at levels believed to be a contributing factor to diseases.
Давлениеден ауырам, қан қысымы жоғары, сахарный диабет. Енді
У меня тоже высокое давление, на зрение отразилось немножко, вот это результат высокого давления отразилось на зрении.
It is the same for this couple, who were born and raised in a high-risk area. Both are suffering from heart disease. Their son was born crippled and was sent to a care facility in another city. The husband was working as a doctor during nuclear tests. He saw many children dying before reaching the age of 10. He revealed that all patients' information was sent to Moscow in secrecy. The Soviets studied this information to assess the results of a nuclear attack by another nation and how they were going to save people. If this is true, sick people in those days were no different from lab rats. During that era, the citizens of the Soviet Union were filled with excitement and pride regarding the potency of their nation's nuclear arsenal, oblivious to the long-term consequences it could have on future generations. When the Soviet Union stopped land testing of nuclear weapons in 1961, it was the time when the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons was being signed, ending testing that would harm humans and the environment. Nonetheless, underground nuclear testing was adopted in 1989. This method was described as less impactful.
If you want to see more great content from all over the world, please like the video, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. Thank you.
Scientists from the Kazakhstan National Nuclear Center led us to Lake Chakan, the site of the largest underground nuclear explosion in 1965. During that time, the Soviet Union turned to nuclear bombs to create water sources or bombed the area for oil drilling, in order to turn this arid area into an economic benefit. With the large Polygon nuclear test site, it took us almost 2 hours to arrive near Lake Chakan. We have to wear masks as protection against residual radiation in the dust and put cloth bags over our shoes to prevent them from picking up contaminated soil. Lake Chakan is located in the middle of an open space created by a nuclear explosion at the convergence of 2 rivers. A massive 140 kiloton nuclear weapon was detonated about 178 meters underground, creating the lake that exists today. Later, the Soviet Union discovered that this was not a good idea, because nuclear bombs contaminated the soil and water beneath the lake with radioactive substances. Contaminants are present in the water below the surface level, but once you reach a depth of 10 meters, the water becomes free of any impurities. The black scorch marks on the rocks on the other side of the lake indicate the heat of that nuclear explosion. Upon detonation, a nuclear bomb releases beta and alpha radiation, which contaminate the surface of the Earth. Additionally, these emissions give rise to gamma rays that disperse into the atmosphere. Consequently, nuclear testing exposes the surrounding air to harmful doses of gamma radiation, which can pose serious health risks to the human body. 50 years later, gamma rays in this area have decreased, but are still considered above normal. We decide to walk closer to Chakan Lake with a radiometer. The device will display the amount of gamma radiation received by the body in 1 hour. Normally, the body should not be exposed to more than 0.17 microsieverts per hour of gamma radiation. As we get closer to the lake, an area close to the site where nuclear weapons were detonated, the gamma radiation is about 10 times higher than normal. The amount of gamma radiation in this area is not immediately harmful to the body, but it would be dangerous to enter this area continuously over about 2 months. Yet, we see people here fishing without protective masks.
И, соответственно, в рыбе тоже прибором специальным, в принципе, показало без результатов, то есть безопасно можно рыбачить, рыбу можно употреблять в пищу.
Без ничего здесь вообще находиться нежелательно, то есть ни минуты. Главное, чтобы в воздухе не было пыли, которая будет подниматься с земли. Это самое главное условие.
This area is not dangerous, but it's not 100% safe either. The National Nuclear Center of Kazakhstan conducted experiments near Lake Chakan involving the planting of birch trees. The purpose of these experiments was to assess the radiation levels in the trees and determine the safety of consuming crops that grow in the vicinity of the lake.
И возможно ли использование этой продукции, да, для питания.
In addition, animals such as cows and horses grow and eat vegetation in this area. Their meat and milk are also tested for radiation. After gaining independence from the Soviet Union, Kazakhstan made a decisive commitment to permanently halting nuclear weapons testing in the region. As part of this effort, all nuclear weapons left in the mountains and caves were eliminated and destroyed, and the underground test holes were securely sealed to prevent any potential danger. Presently, Kazakhstan's focus extends beyond disarmament. The nation aims to revitalize the region and restore life to the affected areas. The emphasis is not only on ridding the area of deadly weapons, but also on promoting sustainable development and fostering a thriving environment for the well-being of its people. Hazardous areas are utilized for studying and researching radioactivity, to observe the growth of plants and organisms within them, with the ultimate goal of determining if this vast region can be restored. With the link between radioactivity and the illnesses afflicting the people in this area remains inconclusive, efforts persist in finding potential cures. The impacts of radiation on the human body are not confined solely to the affected area. They can be transmitted to future generations, potentially extending beyond the local vicinity and affecting people anywhere in the world. In those days, superpowers wanted to possess nuclear weapons. The immense power of these nuclear arsenals came with staggering production costs that extended beyond mere money. In the pursuit of national security, sacrifices were made, leaving lasting impacts on the well-being of people. Although the Cold War and the Soviet Union are now part of history, the legacy remains in the form of bodily abnormalities that may affect generations to come.